Welcome to 5 Books for Catholics, where an expert selects and discusses 5 outstanding works on some aspect of Catholic life, doctrine, or culture. On each week of Lent, 5 Books for Catholics recommends a work for the season. Moreover, it aims to recommend different kinds of work, not just direct expositions of Christian doctrine, but also works of literature, music, and art that help us contemplate and enter the Lenten mysteries. This week, it's literature's turn. Last week's post was on St. Bernard's sermons for Lent and Easter. It was a follow-up on last December's recommendation of his sermons for Advent and Christmas. In like manner, we can follow up this Lent on Advent's choice of literature with another work by the same author. T.S. Eliot's aerial poems were chosen during Advent. In addition to these Christmas poems, one of Eliot's major poems, Ash Wednesday, has a Lenten setting. Nor is it a minor work. The Scottish poet Edwin Muir regarded it as one of Eliot's most moving poems and perhaps his most perfect. Eliot started writing both his aerial poems and Ash Wednesday around the time of his baptism into the Church of England. Not only do the two works reflect his conversion, they also mark a shift in his writing. Following his conversion, his major poems, such as 4 quartets, focus predominantly on Christian themes. So do some of his plays, such as Murder in the Cathedral from 1935 and The Cocktail Party from 1943. Eliot published Ash Wednesday as a collection in 1930. However, he had already published its 6 poems separately in 3 parts between 1927 and 1929. This suggests that Ash Wednesday is, like the aerial poems, a thematically linked series of poems. Indeed, Eliot occasionally spoke of it as such. On other occasions, however, he spoke of it as a single poem. His ambivalence suggests that it can be read in both ways. Like most of Eliot's poems, Ash Wednesday is full of cryptic allusions and literary references. Indeed, it's one of his most difficult works. For this reason, it is worth reading in an edition with notes, such as The Poems of T.S. Eliot, Volume 1. However, it would be a mistake to assume that each detail needs to be understood in full. Eliot claimed that even he did not understand the full reason for some of the poem's images and allusions. He objected to the view that a poem, and Ash Wednesday specifically, is meant to be fully comprehensible. Instead, he argued, poetry is meant to make us experience things in their uniqueness and vitality. Eliot was adamant that despite its title, Ash Wednesday is neither a religious nor a devotional poem. He made this clear in several letters written in 1930. He demurred that Ash Wednesday was no different from any of his earlier poems. As in his earlier verse, he was simply attempting to state a particular phase of his own progress, stages of his own journey. It just so happened that now he was making the only authentic kind of progress. He was progressing towards religion. Ash Wednesday is religious in that sense, he acknowledged. Eliot also refused to categorize Ash Wednesday as devotional verse. In his view, only a spiritually advanced person, such as St. John of the Cross, could write devotional verse and use poetry as a medium to articulate mystical experience. Rather, in Ash Wednesday, Eliot took himself to be delving into a theme that stood somewhere between devotional and conventional poetry, but was heavily underexplored by modern poets. He was referring to the experience of man in search of God, and trying to explain to himself his intenser human feelings in terms of the divine goal. However, Eliot did not rely exclusively on his own experience to do so. One of his main sources is the Vita Nuova, the collection of verse in which Dante critiqued and Christianized the medieval poetry of courtly love. Eliot described Ash Wednesday as a first attempt at a sketchly application of the philosophy of the Vita Nuova to modern life. In his Dante, he specifies that this is the Catholic philosophy of disillusionment, namely the anti-romantic disposition not to expect more from life than it can give, or more from human beings than they can give, to look to death for what life cannot give. It is probably for its articulation of this philosophy that Dante describes the Vita Nuova as a work of capital importance. It's not too difficult to see Eliot applying the Vita Nuova and its philosophy of disillusionment to both modern life and his own. It's not too difficult to see Eliot applying the Vita Nuova and his philosophy of disillusionment to both modern life and his own. The collection opens with the poet expressing his disaffection with this man's gift and that man's scope, or the infirm glory of the positive hour. Furthermore, Ash Wednesday is peppered with allusions to Dante and the Dolci Stil Nuovo. Less obvious is the work's connection to Ash Wednesday. None of the poems is a straightforward description of the liturgy of the opening day of Lent. Rather, the work's title appears to be a reference to Lent as a whole, which in turn represents the experience of newfound faith, conversion, penance, and the struggles of Christian life. Christian conversion brings with it the realization of the futility and transitory nature of things we prized previously. This is how the work's title ties in with the Catholic philosophy of disillusionment. At any rate, one way to make sense of the work is to keep one eye on Dante and another on the liturgy of Lent. Take the opening verse. It quotes the opening line of a ballad by Dante's contemporary Guido Cavalcanti, perché io non spero di tornar mai, because I no longer hope to return. In Cavalcanti's ballad, the poet near death bids farewell to both his lady and to life. Eliot takes up this line to speak of the convert's disillusionment with prestige and careerism. Because I do not hope to turn again. Because I do not hope. Because I do not hope to turn desiring this man's gift and that man's scope, I no longer strive towards such things. Here Eliot is evoking not just Cavalcanti, but Psalm 85, verse 8. Let them not turn again to folly. Moreover, the threefold incantation of the verse is redolent of the penitential rite of the Mass. Lord, have mercy. Christ, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. There are various other allusions to Christian and Lenten penance. The division of the stars in the third poem is taken from Dante's Purgatorio. Other allusions are the colour violet of the fourth poem, the colour of liturgical vestments during Lent, and the penitence addressed to the confessor in the sixth poem. The fifth poem, on the other hand, intersperses Micah 6:3, O my people, what have I done to thee? The verse that is the refrain of the Improperia of Good Friday. Elsewhere, Ash Wednesday describes the struggles and temptations of Christian life. For example, Eliot explained that the three leopards in the second poem represent the threefold concupiscence of the flesh, the world, and the devil. It may have been inspired not just by the three wild animals that Dante encounters at the beginning of the Divine Comedy, but also by the symbolic representation of the threefold concupiscence in the spiritual canticle of St. John of the Cross. However, Lent is not an end, but a means. It looks forward to Easter. Similarly, some of the many biblical references in Ash Wednesday point towards the Paschal mystery. One example is the second poem's reference to Ezekiel's vision of the dry bones, from which God works the resurrection of the dead. Moreover, the evocation of Dante's Purgatorio in the third poem is countered and even resolved in the sixth poem's closing citation of the famous verse uttered by Picardo de Donati in Paradiso. Our peace in his will, in la sua volontade e nostra pace. Lent, like any conversion, consists in conforming oneself anew to God's loving will. Eliot's Ash Wednesday may impress more deeply upon our imagination and memory both the vicissitudes and consolations of the Christian struggle. Thank you for listening. To gain full access to our archive, visit 5booksforcatholics.com and become a premium subscriber. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast and give it a top rating on the platform of your choice. That way more people can discover it. You can also support the podcast and help us produce more interviews like this one by making a one-off donation via the link given in the show notes. As little as $1, £1, or €1 can help and will be greatly appreciated. Thank you once again, and God bless.